sexuality educator. First thing, I got my hair cut. Yes. Okay, but that's not what I want to talk to you about at all. What I want to talk to you about is something that people ask me to talk about a lot, and that is teens and sexting. What is sexting? There are actually a lot of different definitions. Some people, when they say sexting, mean, sending like a sexual text to someone. Other people might mean, sending a sexually explicit image. Some people, when they say sexting, they mean, communication on a phone. Some people may, use that definition to include communication on social media. So, like I said, it can mean a lot of different things. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to say that sexting is any sexually explicit digital communication. In this video, I'm going to talk about a few different aspects of sexting. I'm going to give you some facts around sexting. I'm going to talk about, some of the risks around sexting, some of the reasons that people might choose to sext, and also what to do if things go wrong in a sexting situation. Let's kick it off with some sexting facts, just FYI. Sharing sexual photos of someone under the age of 18 is considered distribution of child pornography, and that's against the law. However, in Canada, there is an exemption to that law, which does allow youth under the age of 18 to share images of themselves as long as the person receiving those images is able to and does consent. The research we have available tells us that the majority of teens actually do not sext. And it also tells us that teens who are under the age of 16 are about half as likely to be sexting as teens who are over the age of 16, and that sexting is most common amongst youth ages 18 to 24. So I will put a link to that research in the description box below. So recently, the University of New Hampshire did a large-scale study about teens and sexting behavior in the United States, and again, I will link to that down below. But in that study, they found that only about 2.5% of the teens that they had studied had appeared in any sort of sexual image or video. So even though teen sexting behavior may not be as prevalent as some people assume it is, that doesn't mean that it never happens. There are teens who do sext, who do send sexually explicit messages or videos to other people, and there are risks involved with that behavior. Probably the most common concern around teens and sexting is that once they send some sort of sexual content to a partner, they lose control of that message or image, and that it can be shared very easily, it can be shared widely, and that is a reasonable concern. Another concern of, teens engaging sexually online or in digital spaces is that it's easier for them to, connect with people that they don't really know, that they've never met in real life. How can teens reduce or mitigate their risks around sexting? Well, first, right off the bat, they can just not sext, which, as I just mentioned in the facts, most youth, or most teens at least, don't sext. And that is a completely valid choice. So, if sexting goes against, your teen's values, if they're not interested in doing it, if it just doesn't seem worth the risks, they don't have to do it. If youth do choose to engage sexually online or through their phones, we can also talk to them about being intentional about what type of information they want to share versus what type of information they want to keep private. You can ask your teen, have you thought about, what kind of images or messages or information you want to share? Have you thought about, which platforms you're comfortable sharing what information on? And have you thought about who you're comfortable sharing this information with? If youth want to share a sexy image with someone, they also have the option of keeping that image on their own phone. So instead of, texting it or sending it to someone, just holding it on their phone and physically showing the phone to their partner. There's also the option of keeping their face or other identifying features out of photos if they are going to send them to other people. And finally, if you want to send, sexy or sexually explicit messages to a partner, they can always work out some sort of code, code words, or using emojis that aren't, easily decipherable by other people if other people happen to see those messages. Okay, I took a quick off-camera lunch break and I ate off all of my lip gloss, so my lips are pale now. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about some of the reasons teens might choose to sext. Sexting is medically safe. You can't contract an STI and you can't get pregnant from sexting. Sexting can be a way for teens to negotiate sexual boundaries and consent, and it may be easier for them to do that, via text messages than it is face-to-face. Sexting can be a way of giving or getting sexual attention. It can be a way of expressing or receiving sexual desire. Now, we sometimes assume that sexual desire or wanting to be sexually desired is a bad thing, particularly for girls. But finding someone attractive or wanting someone that you're attracted to also think that you're attractive and sexually desirable is very common and it's very human. Now, if you are raising a teen, you may not have a big problem with sexting, or you may be really concerned about it. And if you have concerns around sexting, if it's something that you don't want your teen to be doing, you can express that to them, but you can also let them know that, wanting someone to see them as sexy, to see them as desirable is very normal and very human, and there's nothing wrong with them for wanting those things. I want to touch on sexting and consent. Like any other kind of sexual activity, everyone involved in sexting needs to be on board. And in the case of teenagers, everyone involved needs to be legally able to consent to the activity. Down below, I will also include a link to Canada's age of consent laws. In the United States, age of consent is determined by the state and they vary. So you can Google the age of consent laws in your particular state if that's where you live. Beyond the legalities, everyone involved in a sexting situation needs to want and enjoy what's happening. So, it's important for teens to know that they may try sexting, and if they're into it and their partner's into it and it all goes well, that's great. But like any other type of sexual activity, if they try sexting and they are not into it, that's fine. They don't need to do it again. And if they, participate in sexting and their partner decides, this is not for me, that is okay too. That everyone should and is allowed to consent to the sexting. And if there isn't consent, then it's not okay. What about when things go wrong in a sexting situation? Most of us have heard of cases where, someone has shared a sexual image and then it's been shared or posted on the internet and, they're humiliated and embarrassed. They may be bullied for it. Those are horrific situations, and it makes sense that, as parents and adults, we are concerned about our kids winding up in that situation. We make ourselves vulnerable when we engage with other people sexually. And so for teens, and really for anyone, it's important to be aware of what the risks are, not only to our physical well-being, but to our emotional well-being, so that we can make an informed decision about whether or not we want to take those risks on when we engage with a partner sexually. The flip side is that if a partner makes themselves vulnerable to us sexually, we have a choice as to what we are going to do. It's up to us to decide whether or not we are going to respect them and respect the fact that they put that trust in us by honoring their boundaries and their limits. If your teen has had their trust violated by someone who shared, a sexual image or sexual information that your teen shared privately and in confidence, you can let them know that it's not their fault that someone else chose to violate their trust. You can let them know that they have every right to feel hurt. They have every right to feel angry, and you can let them know that, you know, they're not a bad person for putting their trust in someone who turned out not to be trustworthy. And even if they're having a hard time with the fallout, it doesn't make them a bad person, and it doesn't mean that they deserve what's happening to them. I think it's also really important to talk to all teens about the importance of honoring other people's privacy and other people's boundaries. Just because, you know, a picture or information has been shared with us online, that doesn't mean that we are obligated or absolved from responsibility if we choose to share it. Each of us has a choice about how we engage with personal information that we receive online or on our phones. Okay, so I'm going to do something different with the comments prompt today. If you are under, let's say 30, if you are under 30, in the comments below, let me know what you wish, you know, older people understood about sexting. And if you are with me in the older 30 segment of the population, then let me know what you wish that younger people understood about sexting, and hopefully we can get a conversation going. I'd love to know what you think. And I'm not going to tell you you have to like, share, or subscribe, because you can do whatever you want. But if you want to do those things, you certainly can. Otherwise, that's all for now. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you soon. Bye. What? I don't know. Okay. Oh, I can't know because the train is coming through. Come through, train, come through. And my cat's going crazy outside of my office door. My cat's going crazy out there. Let me, while the train is rolling through, talk to you. We're just gonna practice. What are we talking about today?